Okay, so good morning all. So we are going to start today fundamental of object-oriented programming, some concepts, or you can say a brief description about all those terminologies which are there, right? So we are going to see a brief introduction. See, data encapsulation is there, data abstraction is there, inheritance is there. So all those are treated as your units. There are some concepts which are there uh, in this where we are going to briefly discuss about those in first unit, and those are treated to be as a full unit in your syllabus, right? So we are just going to see a brief description about fundamental of object oriented programming today. Okay, so this is about your contents today. We'll start our today's topic, right? Before that, no, we'll quickly revise what all things are we there which we covered. So we started basically with classification of language. What is POP? What is OOP? Right, in first lecture. Uh, then we check what all other things are there as classification, just like object-based programming, rule-based programming is there. Then we see exactly what all differences are there in between procedural-oriented and object-oriented programming, right? We'll see how actually program is there and treated there in object-oriented programming, and how it is treated in object-oriented programming. What all functions are there, how data is combined with that functions and all, right? Then we'll see exactly what those programs and how functions are written in those languages. And those are just overview, right? Then we'll see limitation, what all limitations are there in previous approach, that is procedural approach, and what is need of what you are learning about, that is object oriented programming, right? So and till now we'll cover in last lecture. Now to we are going to see some concepts of object oriented programming. So on your screen basically is a bird eye view of object oriented programming terminologies or concept, right? So am I audible, no? And my voice is clear? Just tell me in chat. Just put a message in chat that okay, okay. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. So, this is a bird eye view, you can say overview of object oriented terminologies or object oriented programming concepts, right? So what all things are there? See, classes are there, objects are there, encapsulation are there, inheritance is there, polymorphism is there, abstraction is there, right? So this is simply, you can say, a bird eye view that if you talk about OOP, that all should be there in that language, right? So this is, you can say overview, or you can say bird eye view of object oriented programming. There are certain additional concepts which are there in this object oriented programming, right? So we'll see some fundamental concepts from object oriented programming. So list is there on your screen. See, class is there, objects are there, encapsulation is there, abstraction, polymorphism is there, then inheritance, dynamic binding, then message passing, all are treated to be as some fundamental terminologies in object oriented programming. So we'll briefly discuss all those concepts one by one, and their relation is given in right hand side. That see, we are going to write a program in with this approach, right? Object oriented programming is approach, and we are going to write a program using this approach, right? So what is there in program? Obviously classes are there and objects are there. So what all things are there in classes and object, that we'll discuss in next slide. Timing, treat this class as structure, right? So uh, for writing a program, no, we have a classes and object, and what all things we are doing in that program, we are just utilizing the features called abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism in that program, right? So in object oriented programming, we are writing a program using classes and object, and what all features are there available in that OP that are going to use it in that program. So object oriented programming is an approach wherein we are going to write a program. In that program, structure is like a class is there, objects are there, and we are going to utilize features called abstraction, encapsulation, inheritance, and polymorphism in that, right? So this is overall a rough structure, you can say, for object oriented programming, right? So started with first thing which is there in those fundamental concepts are classes and objects. So we'll see obviously an overview of class and object, what actually a class is, what actually an object is, in, you can say, in a bookish way, right? We are also going to write a program for that, but in next lecture, right? Time being, just give an idea. I'm going to give you an idea about class and object, right? So simply, I think you know a structure, right? You have started your journey in C using variables, and in you store something in that variable. If you want to store different variable in single thing or single element, then you started using structure, wherein different data types are there. You club those data types, right? So that structure wherein you define a structure in curly braces, right? And you use that curly braces to load all your different data types. Like, just like that only, class is there, right? C++ introduces a concept class which is same as that of like structure, right? So that is simply you can say a class, right? So it is a bookish definition for classes. Class is like a blueprint of data member and member function for an object, right? So it is simply, you can say, a template, right? Or you can say model for a class, right? So again, one more definition which is available is, it is a kind of a collection of object, right? Why it is called a collection of object, that we'll see within 2-3 minutes. Just keep in mind that class is something called a collection of object, right? And then about object, if I'm talking about class, no, if it is like structure, right? Class is like structure, then object is treated to be as structure variable, right? Object are like structure variables, right? So what all things are there, it is simply, you can say, a variable of class, right? So you can create a variable of that class, and that variable is simply called object, right? So it is simply an instance, you can say. Class instance is an object, right? So how actually objects are created? Just by looking towards your class. See, your class is simply a template, right? So by looking towards your class, objects are created. Now objects obviously has some characteristics, or you can say an entity which has state and behavior. Now, what is state and what is behavior? See, behavior are operations, right? So, if you write a function, then it is treated to be as procedure or operation on something, right? And that is simply called behavior. And if you talk about state, state is simply called value. If I'm talking about variable, no, what value that variable holds is simply, you can call it as state of that variable. Just like that, this concept, state of object is whatever values we are stored in that object, or whatever values are there in that object, that is a state of that object, and what operations you are going to perform using that is called a behavior of that object, right? So it is simply, there are simply what we say characteristics. There are something which we will call as operations of behavior of an object, and that operations are, we are going to perform on different with different function on different objects, right? So this is simply an class and object overview. Again, one more thing which is there is why or class is a logical entity. Why it is a logical entity and why object is a physical entity? Because see, a class, as I already mentioned, class is a template, right? It is you can say a blueprint, or you can say a model for an object. So it is simply a logical entity. It is just a framework. So it doesn't get memory inside. It doesn't get memory inside your. It doesn't get memory block inside your memory, right? So for that reason, it is treated to be as an logical entity. Whereas when we create um, object by using or by looking toward as a class, it will have a physical memory. So to store an object, we require memory, right? For that reason, it is called physical entity. That means in class and object has get physical existence. Why it is get physical existence? Because it requires memory, whereas we don't require a memory in RAM for a class. For that reason, object is called as physical entity, whereas class is called as logical entity. So this is simply called a overview of class and object. Now we'll see example which are used in real life. What is class? Now, see, uh, just a minute, just a minute. Okay. Am I audible? No? Am I audible? Put it in chat. Am I audible? माझा आवाज येतो का रे? Okay, thank you. Now, about class and object, right? Examples are there on your screen. See, if we treat as a fruit as a class, then what all objects are there? See, apple is an object for class fruit. You can say banana is object for a class of fruit. Then you can say mango is also an object. If we see a car is a class, then what all objects are there? Obviously, a number of companies are treated to be as an object, just like Toyota, Audi, then Volvo and all. If you talk about shapes, no, if shape is treated to be as class, then what all things are there as an object? See, circle is kind of object for shape class. You can say rectangle, you can say circle, rectangle, and all things which are treated to be as an object for class, right? So those are some simple example of class and object, you can say. Okay. माझं कनेक्शन लॉस नाही झालं ना? माझा आवाज येते? ओके, कनेक्शन लॉस नाही आहे. ओके, थँक्यू. ओके, कनेक्शन लॉस्ट. ओके, थँक्यू. कनेक्शन लॉस जर या केसमध्ये झालं ना, डायरेक्टली ज्याच्याकडे नंबर असेल त्यांनी फोन करा डायरेक्टली मला मोबाईलवर. ओके. Those are about no class and object. Those are some overview terminologies of class and object. Now we'll see some more thing from OP, and those are called features. Even though one more addition in this class and object is, or you can say logical and physical entity. No, one more famous question which is asked every time when you can say an interview is what is the size of an empty class. Now all those things are there in we are going to see what all things on programming as well, but still keep in mind that they every time they ask us what is size of an empty class. So empty class always hold 1 byte of memory, because see, empty class doesn't have anything in that. Those class don't have data members, variables, or data members or variables or functions, or you can say methods are not there, right? still it will get a 1 byte memory. Why? Because it shows a physical existence. Even though nothing is there in a class, still object should give a physical existence. So for that reason, 1 byte from memory is allocated for an object, right? So everything, if anyone is asking about no what is size of empty class, it should always be 1 byte, right? So that is important question which is asked every time in exam, or you can say interviews, right? So next thing which is there is pillar of OOPs. This is also a famous question which is asked every time. So, pillar, or you can say feature of OOP, right? So, what all there are two types of pillars or features available: major pillar and minor pillar. Now, we'll talk about first major pillar. What all major pillars are available? Abstraction is there as major pillar, then encapsulation is there, then modularity is there, hierarchy is there. We are going to see all those one by one briefly in next slide. Still, those four are major pillar. Now, what is the thing is there? Why those are called as major pillar? See, it means that no OP model without those concepts, what all there are treated to be as major pillar. No, it is not treated as object oriented programming, right? So if you are talking about object oriented programming, then those major pillars should be there in that language. Otherwise that approach is not treated to be as object oriented programming, right? So those are some major pillars, that is abstraction, encapsulation, modularity and hierarchy, right? Then what all minor pillars are there? You can say typing or polymorphism is treated to be as minor pillar of OOP. Then concurrency is minor pillar. Then persistence is also a minor pillar. Now what that means is, see, all those elements are required in OOP, but not essential, right? So those are useful. If you use those, no, those are useful in that language, but not all are essential. For that reason, they are treated to be as minor pillar, right? So it is exactly divided into two parts. Those features are exactly divided into two parts. One is major pillar and another one is minor pillar. So those all concepts are there in object oriented programming and treated to be as major and minor pillar, or you can say those are feature of OOP as well, right? So we'll see all those features one by one. Started with abstraction, right? Now what is abstraction is, see, abstraction is all about no hiding information, which is given all the time in book, that it is simply called an hiding and it is simply called a hiding an information. But in a different way in OP, we'll call it abstraction as, see, simply getting only essential things, right, and hiding unnecessary detail are called abstraction. So there is one more terminology called encapsulation, that is also kind of information hiding, and there is a certain difference. Abstraction, wherein abstraction is treated to be as we are going to give only essential things to customer, to user, by using abstraction, and whatever which is not required for that user is basically hiding from that user or customer, right? So this is simply called no abstraction is getting only essential thing and hiding unnecessary detail, right? So what actually we are going to hide in abstraction? Obviously, what all internal details are going to hide in case of abstraction, and whatever a major functionality is there, that is going to show, right? So what all a real life example for this abstraction terminology is, right, if you go into a library, if you check any book, every book in that library has an abstract page, right? So in first 3-4 pages, abstract page is present, wherein details are given, right? So it is treated to be as an abstract page wherein details are given. What all important things are included in that book is mentioned in abstract, right? So it is not about hiding, it is about showing essential things. If you want to, if you want to purchase, or if you want to read that book, no, at that time you are going to go there and library and check the abstract page. If by just by looking that into that abstract page, you will get idea about that book, right? So it is simply called an abstraction, right, wherein all necessary detail from that book is actually given in that abstract page. One more example from this is, car, right? If you are going to give an acceleration to a car, if driver want to accelerate that car and move from one place to another, it will just having no a car in the car design, just giving those essential things upward, right? Just like no pedals are there, accelerator pedal, clutch pedals are there, and gear handle is there, right? Those are essential things which are required, and how it is going to give acceleration into cylinders, into engine, that all are internal detail, and that all obviously are not required to driver. Whatever is required, how to accelerate that car is the requirement of driver. So whatever required is there, a gear handle, then all pedals are given in as a you can say provide a facility to that driver. This is simply also called a abstraction, right, in case of car, right? So those are some real life example of abstraction. So sorry, so those are just some generalized, sorry, those are some generalized terminologies of abstraction. Now how this abstraction is achieved in C++, right? So how it is achieved, obviously every class has something which is there in those curly braces, and that thing is called as variables and functions, just like your C program, whereas those variables are treated as data members, or those variables are called as data members in C++, whereas those functions are called member functions or methods in C++, right? So if you bunch those no with within a class that is inaccessible to outside class, right? So that is treated to be as an abstraction. So those variables, if you keep hidden from direct access to different class in a program, then that is treated to be as an abstraction. So by this way we can achieve abstraction in C++. So whatever there in a class, if we have data members in a class, if we hide those data members from outside world or from direct access, then it is treated to be as an abstraction. Now how this is achieved, see, there are a special terminology called access specifier. So if I'm talking about structure, no, by default access specifier in C or in CPP for structure is always public, right? So wherein we change the structure in, wherein they change the structure in C++, and they come up with three different access specifiers called public, private, and protected. How, where we are going to use those, that we'll see in C later, but timing, keep in mind that there is a functionality called access specifier. So just by putting some keywords there, just like public or private or protected, will give an controlled access to outside words. If we make it as private, no one is going to access rather than that class. If we make it public, everyone can access, and protected as different version. That we'll see in future lectures. So that is something wherein we are going to use those access specifier for abstraction, right? So what actually we avoid in this is, we whatever data members or variables are there, we need to avoid those should not be written in public region. If we write those data members in public region, all other classes can access, or all other clients can access and change the way, change the state of that data members, right? Or you can say change the state of an object, and it may obviously spoil the state of object if they change in undesired way, right? So that should be avoided in case of abstraction, right? So this is about abstraction. Okay, my voice is clear, no? All things are reaching up to you properly. Okay, all contents are okay. 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 If I went somewhere something wrong, then just tell me by messaging. Okay, so this is about abstraction. Then next is encapsulation, right? So what is encapsulation is just having, just creating a bundle of code and data together, right? And that is simply called encapsulation. So it is a bunch of code and data. We bind code and data together, and that's simply called an encapsulation. So this is, there are three different definitions which are there on your screen. So simply binding a code and data together is called encapsulation, or encapsulation is defining as binding together the data and the function. Those functions are going to manipulate the data, right? So this is also a definition. Then one more is encapsulation is defined as wrapping up of data and information under single unit, right? So encapsulation basically is achieved by class. Whatever data and data members are there, whatever member functions, whatever methods are there, they are all bundled together, and those are encapsulated in a single unit, and that is simply called encapsulation. So figure shows an encapsulation wherein capsule is there, and in that methods are there, variables are there, and all these are bundled in class. This is simply called as encapsulation. So what all things are there, what we achieve using those encapsulation is, will maintain integrity of an object, right? No one can change that object state if we bundle that together, right? So encapsulation also hides, no, what all functions, what all details about functions are there inside that class. Those all are hide by this class, right? From whom it is going to hide as the object which is going to send a message to that class or that object. From those, the details are hide, right? So encapsulation is basically hiding functional details. Uh, Obviously, by using, information hiding, we achieve encapsulation. Now, what this information hiding is, whatever structure of object is there, whatever methods are there which are going to implement on that object, those all are hidden from outside world or from other object, right? This is simply called an information hiding. See, we can achieve information hiding by encapsulation, but there is a blur line, we can say there is differentiation in between encapsulation and hiding, right? What all things are there in information hiding is, see, even though information hiding is a process of hiding all the things, all the details of, you can say, object, or what all essential characteristic which are there for an object, we all are going to hide, and that process is referred as information hiding, even though there is a blur line in between information hiding and encapsulation, right? Encapsulation basically is of two type. If you talk about packages, or if you talk about bundle of encapsulation, that possibly should be transparent or non-transparent, or you can say opaque, right, in case of encapsulation. But information hiding is basically non-transparent, right? If we are talking about information hiding, then it is all the time inaccessible to its client, right? But encapsulation is in different way, it is possibly a transparent also, right? Either and that is depends on use of that feature, right? So information hiding and encapsulation in some way different, right? If we're talking about information hiding, it is basically inaccessible. Where it is differentiated those things are, the example for this is a small talk language, right? Wherein functions are always accessible, right? In case of small talk language, and data is always hidden, right? But if we talk about C++, no, we have different access specifier. Even though you can hide the data by using private access specifier, or you can make that data public by using public access specifier, right? So that is differentiation in between, right? So encapsulation and information is somewhere different in such type of languages, right? So in small talk, functions are always accessible, whereas wherein data is always hidden in case of small talk, whereas in C++, there are different access specifier is present. Now, next is modularity. Till now, is it okay for you if you have काय म्हटलं काहीतरी एक मिनिट. Okay. Not getting. See, information hiding म्हणजे काय, तर ते इन्फॉर्मेशन आपण हाईड करतो या केसमध्ये. सो एनकॅप्सुलेशन हे फीचर अवेलेबल केलंय ऑब्जेक्ट ओरिएंटेड प्रोग्रामिंगमध्ये, राईट? सो ते आपण कसं अचीव्ह करतो? ऑब्व्हियसली इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंगने. एनकॅप्सुलेशन आणि इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंग हे समवॉट सिमिलर जरी असेल तरी डिफरन्स काय असतो, तर याच्या आधीच्या म्हणजे ज्या स्मॉल टॉक ही लँग्वेज आहे किंवा याच्या आधीच्या लँग्वेजमध्ये इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंग त्यांनी कसं घेतलं होतं, तर त्या केसमध्ये डेटा हा कम्प्लिटली हाईड केला होता, राईट? त्याला ऍक्सेस दिला नव्हता. डेटा कसा ऍक्सेस करायचा, तर जे मेंबर फंक्शन्स आहेत त्याच्या रादर त्या क्लासमध्ये, त्याच्या थ्रूच तुम्हाला तो ऍक्सेस करता येत होता. हे तर ते थोडंसं चेंज केलं एनकॅप्सुलेशनमध्ये. इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंग हे कंपल्सरी, ते ट्रान्सपरंट सुद्धा असू शकतं. ट्रान्सपरंट म्हणजे डेटा सुद्धा तुम्ही ऍक्सेस करू शकता बाय युझिंग पब्लिक, व्हॉट वी से, पब्लिक ऍक्सेस स्पेसिफायर. सो जरी एक्झॅक्ट ते वर्ड जरी दोन सेम दिसत असेल, इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंग आणि एनकॅप्सुलेशन, तरी हा थोडासा डिफरन्स आहे, राईट? की तिकडं आहे स्मॉल टॉक म्हणजे काही लँग्वेजेसमध्ये त्याची ट्रीटमेंट, इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंगची ट्रीटमेंट काय केली आहे, तर काहीतरी स्पेसिफिकली हाईड ठेवलंय. तेच एनकॅप्सुलेशनमध्ये नाही, ते पॉसिबली ट्रान्सपरंट असेल किंवा नॉन ट्रान्सपरंट असेल, वेअरएज इन्फॉर्मेशन हायडिंग इज नॉन ट्रान्सपरंट ऑलवेज, राईट? सो हा थोडासा डिफरन्स आहे त्याच्यात. ओके. So next is modularity, right? Now modularity is decomposing the thing, which is simply called a modularity. So act of portioning a program, or you can say partitioning a program into different or individual component. Why we are actually partitioning or portioning a program? Just to reduce its complexity, right? So to reduce a complexity of software, or you can see a complex program, we are actually dividing or portioning that program, and will reduce that complexity. Will decompose that software or program separately, and that is simply called a modularity. Why we are dividing the complex program? Obviously it will easier to maintain that program, right? So just for easier maintenance, or just for proper reusability, we are portioning or partitioning a program into individual components, so it also reduces the complexity. Now, even though in this modularity will divide our program into different modules, and they are probably be compiled separately, but those all components or those all modules are interconnected, right? So that is important thing in modularity. Even though we'll compile all those modules separately, those all should be interconnected. How and when, that we'll see in next slides, right? Still keep in mind that modularity is simply called decomposing a program. Why we are going to decompose a program? Just to reduce its complexity. If you portion a program from a complex program, then it will reduce the complexity. It is easier for maintaining those program, right? How this modularity can be achieved in C++? There are two type of modularity in C++. One is physical modularity and another one is logical modularity. So what all things are there that we'll see while we're having a program for you. But time being, keep in mind that physical modularity is especially we are dividing a program, we are separating a program just like .h file, .cpp files and all, right? This is simply called a physical modularity, wherein logical modularity is treated to be as an we are logically dividing a space, which is by using namespaces. Now, what is namespace and all that we'll see, but still keep in mind that you are using those namespace for each and every program in C++. And why? Because we are going to divide that program. So we are achieving this modularity either by physical dividing a program or by logically dividing. So in logical divisions, we are just mentioning some names over there, just like logical modularity. You are achieving, you achieved this logical modularity in your machines or in your laptop just by having different drives of memory, and you store those different things on those different drives. Probably entertainment should be on one drive, probably study material is on one drive, probably software is on a different drive. That is simply called a logical modularity, wherein all those things are there as a single drive, but you are divided a single memory unit, but you are divided all those in a different drives, and you store those things on then different drives, right? Just like study material, just like entertainment, just like movies, just like softwares, right? So this is simply called a logical modularity. We achieve those logical modularity in C++ by using namespaces. So you are going to use this namespace keyword for each and every program here onwards in C++. So this is about modularity. Then next is hierarchy. Now, what is hierarchy is, it is simply called level, or you can say ranking or order of an abstraction. So it is simply ranking, you can say hierarchy is. So why we are using hierarchy in C++ is it will have it will give you reusability, right? Code reusability is achieved by using hierarchy, right? So how many types of hierarchies are present? There are four types of hierarchies present: has a hierarchy, is a hierarchy, use a hierarchy, and creates a hierarchy. What all types are important for you is has a hierarchy and is a hierarchy is important. That is composition. Has a hierarchy is called composition, whereas is a hierarchy is called inheritance. So those two are basically important for you. Use a hierarchy is called dependency. That means one class is basically depends on another class, wherein it is not used anything from that class, right? Whatever data members are there, whatever member functions are there, is not using by another class till dependency is there, right? This is simply called a user hierarchy. And creates a hierarchy is called instantiation. Just to create an object from a class is simply called a creates a hierarchy or instantiation. Now we'll see those two hierarchies. Here is has a hierarchy. Now what is has a hierarchy is, see, we have an object, right? If that object is made up of small object, that is simply called a has a hierarchy, or you can say composition, right? So if we create an object by using some small object, that is simply called an composition, right? So it is simply an collaboration of an object, right? So how this composition or how the hierarchy is there in C++. We'll see a real life example on that is, see, room has a chair, right? So if you talk about room has a chair, room has a wall, room has whatever, room has a table, room has a computer, anything which is included in that room is that is a relation, right, in between room and other part, right? So room has a chair, or you can say car has a engine, right? There are different types available for this composition is aggregation and association, right? So what all things are there in this composition is, see, tightly coupled composition is there and loosely coupled composition, and loosely coupled composition is called association, whereas tightly coupled composition is called aggregation. Aggregation means both the things are important, right? So lifetime of containers depends on lifetime of container in case of aggregation, and whereas in association it is just a relation in between, right? No such constraint are there on container and contained objects, right? So if contained objects are not depend on container as well, right? So this is simply called a loosely coupled thing, right? So composition is made up of small object. This is simply called a has a hierarchy. Now is a hierarchy is called inheritance, right? Now, what is inheritance is acquiring all the properties, or all the properties, that means data members or variables and its behavior, right, from one class to another class, right? This is called inheritance. In other way around, it is called a journey from generalization to specialization, right? So inheritance is also called journey from generalization to specialization. What that means is, see, if you talk about shape, no, it is a generalized term, wherein if I say shape is circle, right, then it is something called a special thing in that shape, right? It is all the points are connected in circular way, right? That is circle, right? So this is simply called, journey from generalization to specialization. So inheritance is a relation wherein there are two classes and one class share behavior of another class, right? And what is that relation in between is one class is treated to be as base class or super class, and another class is treated to be as derived class or subclass. Don't bother about those concepts. We are going to see all those concepts in detail with example, but time being, we need to understand all those things briefly. For that reason, I'm going to give you details, brief details on that, right? Or a brief explanation on that, right? So don't just bother on that, right? Inheritance is just a relation, right? Is a hierarchy, is just a relation wherein one class is going to share a behavior of another class. Now, the class which is at the base is called also a super class, or the class whose properties are inherited by another class is called base class or super class, and the class that inherit properties from another class is called as derived class or subclass, right? So base class is always generalized, whereas subclass is always specialized, right? Here example is given on your screen that a generalized class or base class is animal, and will create a different class here, subclass here, or we derive different class here called subclasses. One is a dog class, another is cat class, and cow class, right? So will use special features, right? Dog is given you, a dog is barking, right? So on that we'll write a special characteristic of dog and operations on that, right? Special operations on that, just like cow is giving you milk, right? On that also will have different properties, or we'll have different data members for that, and we'll have different member functions, right, for that. So we'll write, and even though both are animal, their characteristics are different, their operations are different, right? So we'll separate those and we'll specialize those classes. So this is simply called a hierarchy or inheritance, right? The next is polymorphism. What is the time? Okay, we'll have another 10 minutes. Okay, whether I'm to start with new terminology or anyone has any doubt in this. If you have a doubt, just let me know. काही डाऊट आहे का याच्या आधीच्या कन्सेप्ट मध्ये? असेल तर विचारा, म्हणजे मला पुढे जाता येईल. काय काय बघितलं आपण? एनकॅप्सुलेशन, अब्स्ट्रॅक्शन, याच्या बेस, याच्यात काही प्रॉब्लेम आहे का कुणाला? ओके ओके Okay, let it be. So we'll start with next terminology called polymorphism. Now, polymorphism or typing, right? Polymorphism is also called as typing, right? Polymorphism is a Greek word wherein is a combination of poly plus morphism, right? What is poly? Poly means many, and morphism is, you can say, form or behavior of an object, you can say, right? So if any interface, or you can say one interface having different behavior, or you can say many behavior, and that is something called as polymorphism. If one interface have different behavior, then this phenomenon is also called as a polymorphism. A real life example is a person, right? The same person can have different characteristic. Like if you take me as an example, for you are my student. For you, I am your teacher. For KIT, I am an employee, right? So the role for KIT is different. In case of you, my role is different. If I'm talking about my children's, for that my role is different. I'm treated to be as a father for them, right? So for all other things, my behavior is different for different situations, right? So this is treated to be as an polymorphism, right? If KIT is treated to be as an employee to me, then they'll assign different tasks to me, right? You as a student ask me about your learning, right? Whatever I'm going to teach you in this subject, you are concerned with that subject only. So even though I'm your student association coordinator, whatever work related to that, you will ask to me, right? So behavior is different and different situations, right? So that is simply called, polymorphism, right? What all types are there in polymorphism? Polymorphism has two basic types, that is called compile time polymorphism and runtime polymorphism. Now, what is compile time polymorphism is when we call a function and that function is resolved at compile time, right? Even though you use this in what we say C language, that we have two stages. First, we compile our program and then we execute our program, right? There are two stages, right? So if the call to the function is resolved at compile time, then it is called as compile time polymorphism. There are different names available to this. This compile time polymorphism is called static polymorphism or false polymorphism or early binding, right? So when that call is get resolved at compile time, then it is called a static polymorphism or false polymorphism or early binding, right? How this compile time polymorphism is achieved in C++? So just by having no operator overloading, or you can say function overloading, by those two ways this polymorphism is achieved. Now what is operator overloading is, see, the process of making an operator to execute a different behavior in different instances is known as operator overloading, right? So you are going to assign a different task to that operator. Now say for an example, you have an operator called plus, right? So plus operator is used to add two values, right? But by your function, you are using that operator to concatenate those string, right? So plus operator is used for different behavior called string concatenation, right? That is something called as an operator overloading, right? So you use the plus operator not just for adding, you are using that operator just for string concatenation also, right? That is simply called as operator overloading. And this is the same terminology is applicable for function overloading. A single function is used for different tasks, then that is called as function overloading, right? So compile time polymorphism is achieved in two ways, by operator overloading and by function overloading, right? Now next is runtime polymorphism. See, just like compile time polymorphism, wherein the call is resolved at compile time, in runtime polymorphism, function call is resolved at runtime, and that polymorphism is referred as runtime polymorphism. It has some different names also. You can say this is as dynamic polymorphism or true polymorphism or late binding, right? So when that function call is get resolved at runtime, you will call it as dynamic polymorphism or true polymorphism or late binding, right? How this polymorphism is achieved in C++ is by function overriding, right? What is function overriding? That we'll see detail in next lecture. But time being, keep in mind that if you have a same function in two classes, that is base class as well as in derived class, then that is simply called as function overriding, right? If the same function you'll define in base class as well as in derived class, then that function is referred as function overriding, right? So this is simply called a runtime polymorphism. Now, one more terminology is there as concurrency. So, in concurrency, if you want simultaneous executions at that time, or you can say some complex system requires simultaneous execution at that time, we'll use concurrency, right? So, what is concurrency? Just by if application is there, if software is there, we'll split that application on different system is one way, or you can say on single machine. How you are going to achieve this concurrency is just to create an illusion that they are sharing a processor, right? So how concurrency is achieved? This concurrency is achieved by using thread, right? What is thread? That we'll see uh, in next lecture. But time being, thread is a process, or you can say a lightweight process where we can different small programs. Thread, we can apply those thread for small programs as well, right? So those threads are basically on operating system. So what is important in this case is your operating system should support multi-threading. If your operating system is supported this functionality, then and then only you will have this concurrency in your programs, right? Or threads in your programs. So this is about concurrency. Then persistence is one more terminology wherein the property of objects through which its existence go beyond time and space, right? That means if you want to send an object on network, in that case, this should be there, persistence, right? So if that object's existence is beyond time and space, then it is called as that object is persistent, right? So it is across time and space. Where it is used in serialization case, it is used, or if you want to transfer an object from one place to another on the network, it is used, right? C++ has also a serialization, but to it, but up to some certain limits, right? So the next is message passing. Message passing, in that, what is message passing is objects are communicated just by sending and receiving message to each other. So if object want to send and receive an information, it is send actually a message, right? The accessible operations or functions are also called as message. So what is there in is invoking a member function on object is also termed as sending a message. If you invoke a message, sorry, object, if you invoke a function on an object, it is termed as we send a message to that object. After that, that object, on basis of that function or whatever message that you are going to send, which is there in that member function, object change its state and execute that method on that object, right? So it will change its state, object change its state, right, in response to object's message, right, which is come from another object, right? In that case, this is, you can say a sending and receiving an object, right? So those all features are referred to as message passing in C++, right? So if we invoke a member function on object, it is called, we are sending a message to an object. If we and how object is responding, object is executing that function and it changes state. Whatever values are there in that object is going to change the state or values from that object and giving reply to calling object, and this is simply called message passing. And last thing which is therein is dynamic binding. Now dynamic binding is called the code to be executed in response to function call, and all is decided at a runtime. This is simply called a dynamic binding. How we are going to achieve this is by using virtual function. Again, virtual is keyword which is used in C++. What all virtual function that we'll see in next slides, right? Time being, this is all about today's lecture and fundamentals of OOP, right? Anyone has anything which is not understood, just let me know. Those things that we are gone through, right? We have gone through abstraction, we have briefly gone through encapsulation, then modularity, then hierarchy, then typing, or you can say polymorphism, concurrency, persistence, message passing, then dynamic binding, all things are there. If anyone has any query, just let me know. PPT is also. कोण काहीतरी बोललं मला आवाज नाही आला.
So please share recorded lecture links.
हां, शेअर करतोय मी. हो, शेअर करतोय मी. आज किंवा उद्या मी त्याच्या लिंक तुमच्या ग्रुपवर टाकून देईन. ओके. ओके. काही प्रॉब्लेम आहे का याच्यात? ओके, थांबूयात का आपण मग? ओके.